How you guys' break? A couple of those games the other night, man. It's been crazy.
All right, guys, we will start off with some questions.
Hey there, Coach.
Yeah.
It feels like we're just kind of always asking about the comings and the goings and sort of personnel with your team.
Yeah.
What's going on with Desmond Cloud?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you saw he wasn't at practice today. You know, he's just dealing with a personal matter
Sure.
right now, and we support him. You know, our teammates, our staff, everybody supports what he's going through right now, and hopefully, hopefully we get him back soon.
Yeah. Injuries have played a big part of sort of your journey, your story this season. Just what's the latest? Saw that Jacob is back. How far back is he? Wesley, what's the update with there? What's the update with Lathan?
The whole thing, the whole team. First thing, Wesley. Obviously, he did some stuff today. It's kind of the first 5-on-5, even walking through to scout. Is what he did, and so we'll see how he responds tomorrow for his availability. Jo, same thing. Today was kind of the first day of 5-on-5 with any type of contact for him. So I don't know what either one of their availability be tomorrow. And if it is, it'll probably be limited, to be honest. We'll see. You got to play it out. Obviously, Lathan, he's still out. Imagine still kind of day to day. He looks like he's moving a little better, but he hasn't even been involved in practice at all. And then, and Joshua Rencher. Joshua Rencher is dealing with a medical issue. That he'll, hopefully we'll get some more information on this week.
When's the last time you saw Terrell Jacob on the floor, and what do you think he could sort of bring to you guys?
Jake, well, the last time, I think it was, it might have been the third week of September, something like that when he went down. But what he does, in the summer and those first couple weeks of September, he was our second best shooter, percentage-wise and makes-wise, and he was our second best rebounder. The one thing he does is he's got a lot of college basketball experience. He's got a really high college basketball IQ. Offensively, the ball was moving a lot better when he was on the floor because he can stretch the floor. But he also knows how to dribble, operate, and pass, screen, pop, make reads. He's a skilled basketball player, and we need that. But we need his ability to stretch the floor, to be able to open up. Just the more shooters you have on the floor, you look around the league, everybody's got 4 shooters, if not 5, and those are the hardest teams to guard. I look at, right before practice started, I saw, Wisconsin beat Michigan, but they made 15 threes. Like teams in our league, like, Indiana, like they shoot it. Nebraska, everybody shoots it, so having a guy like Jacob that can knock down threes opens stuff up.
To like that right there, you like have a guy like that with a Q who got hot in that last game. How can you guys better support him? Maybe get more of those performances out of him maybe earlier, so that you're not so far behind him.
Out of Kamari?
Q,
yeah. I thought I thought we got great shots in the first half, even against Purdue. Like Nola. I think he was 0 for 4 in that first half, but we were getting looks. And when you're playing a team like Purdue at Purdue, you got to make them. You don't have to make all of them, but you can't go, 2 for 10 or 2 for 11. You have to make 4 a half, at least, in order to beat those teams and Indiana. But, I thought, he did. He made some late, but, if you can get 5 or 6 threes out of him, that's great. And to score 71, with, the way we played for the majority of that game, I thought was pretty good. But you make a couple threes, you're at 80. And there's not too many teams scoring 80 at Purdue.
And then just my last one for me. Just a thought or two on your freshmen. You had 4 out there today. Just we're halfway through the season. I don't know if you still call them freshmen, but just where sort of how far along are they? Obviously, one just sort of got here, but the other 3 have kind of been here some. Just how much are you relying on them? And it feels like they can't really be freshmen now. They've got to kind of be more than that. Yeah,
they can't. If you're on the court and you're playing, you can't be a freshman. At the end of the day, if you're one of the 5 guys on the court, you're responsible for being like a 5th-year senior, and because that's who you're going to be guarding and competing against. And I think with Hannes and JJ, they played a lot of basketball. Cortland, not as much. Not saying he hasn't played a lot of basketball, but he hasn't had the minutes that those other two have had, even in the preseason. So, but I was proud of him, the way he competed in that first half against Purdue. And, he got 2 turnovers and, and he's trying to guard Braden Smith, which is not easy to do, but he was out there competing and fighting. And when you look at the end of the game, when we, I think that last 10 minutes when it was 23 and we cut it to 8, it was a lot of those guys on the floor, and they weren't doing anything but their job. Like, they were just playing hard, and a lot of the 50-50 balls, we came up with them with those guys on the court. And, that's all we can ask from them. Like, just when you're on the court, do your job and play hard. That's it. And let the score, let the circumstances take over from there. But just do your job and see what happens. But like I said, they're not really – nobody's a freshman anymore, especially at this time.
The physicality and the intensity is certainly ramped up here in conference play. What do you want to see out of your guys to match the physicality of your opponents? Yeah,
I mean, you got to fight, and I thought we did that, like at Indiana. It's not easy, it's not, and it's not an excuse, losing by 8 or 10, but like we fought and we competed. It's a couple shots here, it's a couple 50-50 balls here, a couple breakdowns defensively or turnovers. Like the margins that we talk about winning, like you can't do that if you're going to win in Big Ten play. We have to take care of the basketball. I think we had 4 at Indiana. If you have 4 at Purdue, you never know what happens. But like now it's hard to have 4 or less in a game, especially against some of these defensive teams. But the elite teams, that's what they do. And we have to take care of the basketball, but we have to embrace physicality. And even our freshmen, like I said, nobody cares that you're a freshman. In fact, they're going to go at you if you're a freshman. Teams are going to continue to try and go at Hannes. They're going to try to, get Frank in foul trouble. They're going to try to get Zoom in foul trouble. Or JJ. They're going to go at those guys. And that's where, we got to man up, and we have to do a better job of guarding one-on-one so we're not put in some of those scramble situations. Our ball screen defense has to get cleaned up. Purdue exploited us on some of the stuff, and we showed the film, and it's correctable stuff. But a lot of it is it's having that urgency and that physicality to initiate the fight. Like you can't wait for the punch to come to you. You got to initiate it.
And with regards to your shooting, you've had a couple of your key shooters are hurt. But as far as the personnel that you do have, Zoom has really picked up his shooting. He's improved, I think, by about double what he was last year. Are there things you're trying to do to get him more looks from 3?
Yeah, I mean, we can get those guys looks. Like we've been getting wide open looks. I mean, you watch all our games, you can't get better looks at the Division I level. I mean, we're open. Now we got to knock them down. And like you said, Zoom, I think he's made tremendous strides. And he's one of the guys that's shooting the ball extremely well for us. Now, he's dynamic off the bounce. And a lot of times in ball screens, it's hard to shoot threes off the dribble. But when we are moving the basketball and we catch him in those where he can catch and shoot, I'm as comfortable with him shooting as anybody. And he's proven that this year. I think he's shooting remarkably better, and he's confident in shooting those.
So is it more of a mechanical thing, or is it a confidence thing for your shooters when it comes to shooting?
Probably more of it's not a mechanical thing. Like they've all shooting, they've all put the work in. Now it's a making problem. Like we got to make them. And it's one of those where threes are contagious. They really are. Like once somebody makes one, then all of a sudden the next guy makes them, and all of a sudden now you got 3 or 4 guys making them. And that's kind of how we've been when we make them in bunches. We haven't been consistent, making threes. And and that's where we got to get to in order to continue to win some games.
And one more, Hannes, he's been your main scorer throughout the season. Do you really want that to be the focus or the identity of your offense, trying to work the ball inside and getting him more opportunities? Maybe that also opens up guys on the perimeter. Is that what maybe you're thinking?
Yeah, I mean we don't throw him the ball as much as we should at times. Like when you have a first round pick, like we can't miss him when he's open. We don't necessarily throw the ball to him on the block a lot. We hit him in the short roll, and that's where he's elite, and he's one of the most unselfish players in the country. That's when guys are getting wide open shots because of the way teams are guarding Hannes. To be honest, when you watch our games, like teams game plan for Hannes. That's what they're doing. And depending on, like, there's been teams try to take him out of the short roll, then we have to go to other stuff. When we hit him in the short roll, he can score it or he sprays it, and he's one of the best passers that we have. And so we have to continue playing through him. But his usage rate, like we've played through Zoom more than anybody, through ball screen stuff. And Zoom I thought he's been really, really good, especially the last 3-4 games. And you see his assists really rising up. He's making the easy play, the right basketball play. And that's why I think he had 8 assists against Purdue. And we have to continue using that, when Dez is back, he's dynamic in ball screens too. Not having Wesley the last 4 or 5 games, like it hurts because when teams collapse, you need multiple shooters out there to knock down shots.
Coach, to stick with Zoom, and I think it was the last home game we talked to you talked about Zoom's growth defensively and his coachability. Just watching practice, you're hearing him talk, maybe one of the loudest talkers out there, and he's, if he makes a mistake, he's willing to go and learn from it. Can you just speak to more of his growth defensively and his coachability for you?
Yeah, he's great. That's why the team named him a leader, as a sophomore. His passion comes through. It's important to him. It is. Husky basketball is important. Him playing good, he has a lot of personal pride too. And but he's the one galvanizing the team in the locker room. He's the guy at halftime. He has a voice and he's not scared to speak up. It's important nowadays because a lot of kids sometimes they're not confident enough to speak up. Even if they're a confident player, they're not confident enough to speak up because then they feel ooh, now I put myself out there. Zoom's not afraid to do that, which I'm proud of him. And it's why he's going to be successful not only in basketball but in life. He's not afraid to fail. And you're all going to fail at times, and that's why I'm proud of him. For being a young kid and being able to speak up the way he has and lead, and to be able to handle some tough coaching. He's handled adversity this year. He's had times where he came back from injury and didn't start, didn't pout. Hey, he worked his way back in, and now he's obviously one of our best players, and he's playing tremendous right now. So very proud of him.
And then with the Indiana and the Purdue games, is there anything specific you hope that your group takes from those games, or is it just kind of rehashing some of the stuff that you've trying to been preached the rest of the season?
Yeah, a lot of it is stuff that we'd been talking about. When you look in all of our losses, there's always a couple segments during that game where we get selfish. Where we don't make the easy basketball play. We have guys wide open and we look them off, or we just aren't making the winning plays. 50-50 balls. Indiana, their kid Connor Enright, they got about 6 of them that were backbreakers, where we got to have 2 guys on the floor diving on the floor, or it might be a wall up at the rim. When they made their play, we got it to Zoom a little bit late. We're down 6 with 3-4 minutes to go. Where if we'd have got it to him early, he lays the ball up or gets an and one. Instead, their guy, we gave him time by not throwing it up. Their guy chested up, made him score over. We missed it. They hit a 3. Now instead of at 4, it's at 9. And those are the things that win games at the Big Ten level. And so we got to continue learning from some of those things in film. But eventually, we got to start putting action behind those words too. There's going to be times tomorrow at between 3 and 5 tomorrow where that game's going to be in the balance, and we have to make the correct basketball play.
Defensively, Kimari seems like he's just been matched up against a lot of teams' top guards, even top scorers. Tomorrow, Ohio State, brings 2 of them, one of them being Bruce Thornton, who's averaging 20 a game. What's been the message to him, working with him, knowing, hey, you're probably going to be walled up against another elite guard?
It is, and I think sometimes in some of those games where Kamari didn't shoot it, he's working his butt off on the defensive end for 20 straight seconds, guarding some of the best players, the best shooters, and chasing off staggers and getting through screens. But he's our best defender. Wesley's pretty good. Wesley's really good on the basketball too, and obviously with him not playing the last 5 games, it's put a lot on Kamari, where there's no breaks in a game. We need you to run off staggers on the offensive end and expend it, but then you got to sprint back and guard some of the best players in the Big Ten. And so, proud of him, but he does a really good job of, pretty much not getting screened. He fights through stuff and blows up, DHOs and staggers, which, we need all of our guards to be able to do that.
And then Nola, he's been thrown into the fire right away. But while some of the shots haven't gone in, it looks like he's really shooting the 3 ball with confidence. What's it been with him? How do you figure him going into the rotation, especially with a couple big games? We talk about guys being out too. What are you hoping to see from him?
Yeah, he's going to knock down some shots. He had some good. He was never in a rhythm against Purdue, and it's crazy because when you watch the game, if he even makes 2 of those, he played great. Now, because when we got going offensively, we were kind of in a rut to start the game. But in the first half, he had like 3 passes that led directly to baskets, where other guys, we weren't making those plays. He's got a very high he's a great passer and a facilitator, similar to Hannes in ways. But now, yeah, we need him to knock down some shots, which he will. Like I said, he's 18 years old and just got over here from serving. He's playing in Mackey Arena in front of 17,000. But he wasn't scared of the moment, and that's the one thing I like. There's no hesitation in him. And there's going to be a game where he makes 4 of them.
And then, not only just 3 big-time logos and names coming into Seattle, but, 3 very good basketball teams as well. What's been the message to your basketball team, as you have, 3 monster games coming up?
Yeah, it's an awesome opportunity. Like we get these 3 games at home, and hopefully our arena is as packed as Indiana and Purdue and all these places that we go to on the road. And I don't want this place packed with Michigan people either on Wednesday. I don't want it packed with Ohio State people on tomorrow at 3:00 either. Like we have to have a home court advantage, where it gets you over that hump, where it gives you that 8 to 10 points, like Purdue. Like it's hard when you go play in these environments, and these teams traveling over here, like they need to see how important West Coast basketball is too. And I expect those crowds to this week to be rocking, and hopefully it helps us get over the hump. And obviously we got to do our part. We got to compete. We have 4 basically top 10 teams in 14 days. When you include Purdue, Nebraska just won again today. You got Michigan, Mississippi State, Ohio State. Okay, they could very easily be a top 10 team in the country. They're 3 possessions away from being 13-1. They lost on a last-second shot at Pitt. They lost by 3 to Nebraska. North Carolina, last-second shot. Even the Illinois game was close. Like they're very close to being undefeated. And we made sure our players knew like how good they are. They went down to Oregon the other night and played great. Went on a 21-0 run. Like this is a damn good basketball team coming in, and I don't want to. Just because the other teams we're playing are ranked in the top 10 doesn't mean Ohio State shouldn't be ranked in the top 10 also.
Hey, you have repeatedly said that nobody cares and you don't want to use it as an excuse. But the increase in the absences have been a big part of your story this year. How have you sort of wrapped your mind around that and sort of got your team to like sort of play despite people coming and going in and out of the lineups and the rotation?
Yeah, it's been challenging, and obviously as a staff, like you're trying to figure out the best way for us to defend teams where we don't even know who we're going to have, and so many different styles. And to credit to our guys, like nobody once has complained, like I don't even bring it up in staff meetings. We don't like it's not worth talking about. Like no, we got who we got, and like we're not going to dwell on who we don't have, because like you said, nobody cares. We still got to play tomorrow at 3:00. Whether we have 5 guys or we have 15 guys. And so we have to make sure whatever guys we have available, we're coaching them to the best of our ability to help them to be successful at 3:00 tomorrow. But it is frustrating, and I give a lot of credit to our guys. Like we've had to play different lineups. We've had to play Zoom at the 4. He's not a 4. We've had to play Bryson Tucker at the 4. He's not a 4. Desmond's had to play some 4. We've had lineups where Kamari, Cortland, and JJ are on the court. Like they've never ran plays together. And for them to continue to go out and fight and have a good attitude and keep showing up every day and to be learning in film and to see like incremental improvements from even these guys. Like JJ, I thought the last 10 minutes of Purdue, and I told him, I said, that's the most proud I've been of you all season. You didn't make one shot during that 10, 11-minute span. But his leadership in timeouts, his leadership getting teams in the huddle, how vocal he was and the command he had, and defensively, it was his best 10 minutes. We got to build on that. I watched Zoom on film, and he's sprinting in and making sure guys are sprinting into the huddle, and he's getting everybody together. Like, that's the stuff that wins. It didn't help us win that game, but it's going to help us down the road when guys have, that care factor. And now we got to have everybody with that. And we need guys to be healthy. In order for us to get that. And but I'm proud of our guys. I really am. Like I said, it's not, you want to win every game, but the improvement I'm seeing and these guys fight. That's what I'm proud of.
And did you say that with Desmond that you may have him tomorrow, may not have him tomorrow. What is?
Yeah, like I said, I have no idea, honestly. Like I said, it's just a personal matter that he's dealing with, and like I said, we support him.
And haven't asked you about this guy in a while. Christian Nitu.
Nitu, yeah.
Is he with the team? Not with the team?
No, not with the team.
Okay.
Yeah, not with the team. It's still kind of open right now. It's kind of a weird situation with that. Mm-hmm.
And then I'd be missed if I didn't ask about another Christian, Velp, going up in the Raptors tomorrow.
It's awesome.
What's your thoughts on, like, how did that happen? What does that mean for this, program to, like, have that? And what's the lesson of Christian Velp?
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I mean, when you're talking about the school's all-time leading scorer, I mean, think about that. Like, out of all the tremendous players that have put that Husky uniform on, he's the all-time leading scorer. You know, his rebounds, his blocks, like everything he did, getting drafted, winning, EuroLeague titles, the player that he was, I think they won the Pac-12 or Pac-10 at that time twice when he was here. Like, that's what getting your jersey retired. It's about winning, making an impact, And there's a lot of guys that just score a lot of points, but he won, B. Roy and IT, they won, and that's how you leave a legacy. But I think just the more stories I hear about just the type of person he was, like he wasn't just a basketball player. Like, in fact, that was like secondary. He was just a great basketball player, but he was just a normal guy, man, that just enjoyed life and impacted the community while he was here and impacted, obviously, all of his teammates and in Germany when he was playing professionally. But to hear like just Detlef you hear stories about him and just what type of guy he was. It's awesome, and it's well deserving. It's, obviously it's awesome for his family to be able to experience this, but for our players to know the tradition and the history of this program. It was in the 80s, but like, how awesome is that? Like, now they're learning, oh man, we won the Pac-10 twice back then. Like, some of these young guys, they have no idea. We all know that, but to have some of that infused into our guys is awesome.
And I have to ask, over 2,000 points.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that'll ever be broken here? Just in today's
landscape, probably not. It's crazy to say because usually when you have a player that's going to be that good, after 2 or 3 years, they're either going to the NBA or they're not here. And so, yeah, I mean, it's hard at any school, to score that many points at one school, which is probably what you're asking. Yes, I think it'll be very hard to get that broken.
Thanks, Coach.
Time for one more if anybody has one.
If you know any players that can come break it, let me know. You bet. Yep. Thank you, guys.
So I did it.